Website Decoded.
In this video, we're going to look at a plugin called MaxButtons Pro, and it is a premium plugin, and it is the single best plugin for buttons that we've found yet. So once you have it, you end up on the general page, and you can add a new button, and this gives you a list of all the buttons that you actually have on your site once you've obviously created some. So I'm going to pop down to the bottom, and we're going to look at how I created this one, the demo button. One thing you can do if you want to copy one of your existing buttons is just press copy, and it will literally duplicate it with a new ID. Or you can just press edit. In this case, we're going to press edit. And here we have a demo button. So you're just going to give it a name, and this is solely so that you can find it in that list along with a description. The URL is where the button goes to when it's pressed, and you don't need your full site details. You can just do whatever your site is. In our case, obviously websitedecoded.com. Then you just press just put in / and then wherever you want to go to. You can have it go to a new window. We tend to do our buttons with a 280 width. It's this size and it looks pretty good. And as you can see here, this is a live demonstration of what your button will look like once you've finished with it. Again, we often do 2 lines, sometimes we do 1 line. If you just leave this blank, then the button goes back to being 1 line, and this padding over here determines how much space there is everywhere. So if I just put that back, and these are the sizes we typically use: 19, 12, bold on the top line, which is the demo button text, center it, and then here this padding top is this gap here above the text. The padding bottom is this gap just below the text, the top line of the text, and then left and right is the padding here and here. Now obviously we have it centered, so it's not going to push anything around. But if we make that so you can really see it, 20, you can see that text move. And the same goes for the bottom one. We put the text you want in the bottom on the last line. That tends to be details of what the button's about if you have a second line. And again, we use this padding here to make it happen. This shadow offset is the shadow of the text, and it tends to get a little fuzzy. This is the only thing we don't really use in this plugin. So we just set all of those to 0. And then you can have an image in your button, so you can have like a little icon in here. Again, if you have an icon, you typically want them about 40 pixels high, so that pretty much square. That tends to look good. And then you have extra padding. Just play with the padding, make the button here left aligned instead of center aligned, and just give it some padding on the left so that it doesn't go over the top of the image. And you can see the padding for where the image goes. The image isn't right up against that edge of that button. You can say, oh, I'll have a little bit more on the left. I'll give it 6 or whatever you like. Just play with the numbers. You'll find out what looks good. The border radius, as you can see here, we've got slightly curved corners. We tend to go with 6s there because it looks good. 4s work quite well. Style solid. This is the outline of the button, and you want that solid unless you're doing a really different type of button, in which case like you might want a dashed one if you're doing some kind of like coupon button. The width, this is the border, so the width of the border, 1 pixels generally tend to be pretty good. And then the offset and shadow, again we typically stick with 1s or 2s in here, and 3 for the shadow width. Then we come to the colors. Now this top row, the normal, is for this button here, which is what you'll see on your site, and the second row is the hover color, which is what happens when you hover over the button, and this is what it will look like. To give you some quick quick place to start. The text, if you just click on that, it'll bring up a color picker, and you can just type in that, or you can grab this and move it around. Now, for text, we tend to use black, which is all zeros. The text shadow, we use all threes, which is a dark grey. And then for this look, we go from white to all C's, so C, 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 and same with the border, and that will give you this look. And then the border shadow is again all threes, the same as the text. Now you can go really wild and wacky with this, and have any colour you want, literally. You play with this, you can really make it look hideous. So here we go, you can sort of start to see where they're coming in. This one's the border, you can see a slight yellowy gold border around the red and purple button. Again, just pick something that looks good with your site colours. Tend to go lighter with darker text, it makes it easier to read. This grey does go with every site that we've ever done. And then in here we tend to just pick something fairly light. So again, if you were going for a, say you're going for a turquoise site, I'd tend to start around here for the initial colour of the gradient, and then go to something a little darker, but not desperately darker. Ooh, that's too much. You want to see that almost like a faint line in here, that's what gives it that curved aspect. And I am going to make the border exactly the same as the bottom gradient, because again that tends to look good. And there we have a different type of button, different colour button from the green that we were originally. Now this last section down here is basically a container around the button. If you are putting this button on a page or a post, you want to use this container, because otherwise your people will be able to hover over, like I can here, hover over not on the button and it still be clickable. So you want to actually contain that button. If you're putting it in a widget, it's not so much of an issue because the widget pretty much contains it. But anywhere else you want that container. You may want to put in a width of 280, since that's your button width for the width of the container. And then these margins are just extra space around the button. So let's say you want two buttons, one under each other. Well, give them a margin bottom of 10, because that puts a little gap down here of 10 pixels that the button below it can't run over. So you don't get them all looking like it's just one big huge blob. Again, if you are doing this inside of your post or page, you can use display inline block. That way you can get buttons side by side. You can use a float left. That will literally place your button and float it left of whatever comes below it. So let's say you are typing in a bunch of text saying click the button here, and you want the button to the left of it. You use float left and you put the button code above your click here to select the button. Otherwise, we just tend to leave that blank. So that's about all there is to these buttons. And then you come up here, I'm just going to move that out of the way, and you're going to save your button. And just wait for that to save. And as you can see here as well, and it will happen as soon as you start your button, this here is the shortcode. And you can literally place this wherever you want on your site. A page, a post, a widget. If you're into coding, you can put it directly into anything else as long as you do a function on it called do shortcode. Then you can put that in there, and it will literally just create the shortcode, and it will end up with your button. And what you end up with on your site, if we refresh this, is your new button. And that's all there is to MaxButtons Pro, which is an awesome plugin and we highly recommend it.